Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me all right? Thank you for being here. My name's Jay Geidner. I'm the University Archivist here at UNC. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody tonight. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves.
Closer to the mic.
I'm here joined on stage by several alumni and a former university administrator, and each of them were involved with Jubilee, the spring concert here at UNC in one way or the other. We have Bill Schmidt here from the class of 1966, who served as president of the Germans Club. Camilla Walters Crampton, also from the class of 1966, who served as a member of the Grimm Memorial Activities Board. We have Jim Bramlett from the class of 1968, who was one of the producers of the film of the 1971 Jubilee concert, along with Charlie Huntley, who couldn't make it here tonight, Rick Gibbs from the class of 1971, and H.B. Huff from the class of 1971. And finally, but definitely not least, we have Archie Copeland, who at the time of Jubilee was the assistant director of the Student Union, and he became director when Howard Henry retired in 1987. From 1963 to 1971, I'm sure you all can remember, but the end of the spring semester was marked by Jubilee. It progressed from a very small concert that took place in front of the lawn in Grimm Memorial to much larger events that took place on Polk Place, Carmichael Auditorium, Fetzer Field, Keenan Stadium, and Navy Field. In 1963, the Four Preps, the Chad Mitchell Trio, and Ian Hamilton performed at the first Jubilee. And there was, on Friday evening, about 5,000 people attended to listen to the Four Preps. Since then, there's been a variety of musicians and musical groups, Flat and Scruggs and the Foggy Mountain Boys, the Serendipity Singers, the Symphonians, the Platters, Johnny Cash and June Carter, the Temptations, Neil Diamond, James Taylor, B.B. King, Joe Cocker, and there was a comedian, Fred Smoot, that also performed. In 1966, the first two nights of Jubilee took place at Carmichael Auditorium because of the weather. And in the first Friday night, there were 5,500 people attended, so you can see in a couple years the crowds definitely increased. And then on Saturday, David Della Rosa and Brooks and Jay and the Americans and Al Hurt performed in front of 7,200 people. And in the afternoon, Charlie Bird performed on Polk Place. Now, 40 years ago, this past week, the last Jubilee was held. And it had definitely changed from when it first started in 1963. The crowds are much larger and there are more performers. The 1971 concert included Chuck Berry, Spirit, Cowboy, Muddy Waters, the Geils Band, the Allman Brothers, and Tom Rush. And the attendance was 17,500 on Friday night and 23,000 on Saturday. And thanks to the work of Jim Bramlett, Rick Gibbs, and Charlie Huntley, as well as H.B. Huff, Bill Hatch, and Rod Waldorf, and Peter Chaikin, Jim Eldridge, and Tom Eshelman, the 1971 Jubilee was captured on film, and it took place on Navy Field. And the film just was an extraordinary view of Jubilee in 1971 and also student life. And I don't know if you've been back in the oil room where we have some materials on exhibit, but they've been playing the longer film. But right now, thanks to Jim Bramlett, we're going to play a shortened version of the film, about a few minutes right here. And here you go, right here on this screen.
This sure is a good way to bring in spring, isn't it, huh? What hope y'all's high as we are. Got my mojo with you. 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 I got $700. thing. You ain't got to play so many notes if you get what each note brings. Every night you get tight, play your music, lose your head, go up, go down, and go out, and go over, and come back around to the very same place. I can see through the stuff showing on your face. Everything here's getting kind of crazy. Everybody knows, but everybody's too damn lazy. Oh, same old stuff. Take off your tie, boy, it's turning you red. It's looking like a rope around your neck. I ain't the kind to tell you how to live, but the life you got now is gonna leave you a wreck. Why don't you sit down, take it easy, smile a bit, let it flow, let it rip, pour some wine, take a sip. No one will care if you drink 100 cups. If you wanna talk to, if you don't, shut up. Everything here gets kind of crazy. Everybody knows that everybody's too damn lazy. Come along. Let me hear you how to order! 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 Everybody, order! Yeah, that sounds like Chapel Hill now, yeah. It must really be groovy around here after the sun goes down.
Well, thank you, Jim, for creating that shortened version. And now on to some questions. We'll ask the panelists some questions about Jubilee. And my first question to the panel is, how did Jubilee come about? What was the start of Jubilee, and whose idea was it to bring a spring concert to UNC?
Bill Schmidt here, and I'm going to have to give our friend Archie Copeland most of the impetus because Camilla and I were on the Graham Memorial Activities Board our sophomore year, and I remember kicking him about some all-campus activity, and I had worked with Mr. Howard Henry, as German club president to put together acts and entertainers, and he started putting together groups that he thought he could bring in, and then he had tremendous contacts for up in the East with booking agents and so forth, and I believe that's where the energy came. And I remember in the print shop down below Graham Memorial putting together posters, and all of us went putting them on telephone poles in the dorm, and Camilla was my right hand, and there were about 6 of us on the committee.
Oh, no, I think 6 is about right. We worked very hard. We did exactly what Bill told us to do.
And our whole, the old energy came from Archie Copeland, who, I love this guy, and he meant so much to us and everybody that with GMAB all those years, and I want to have him tell us a little bit more.
Gee, thanks. Thanks. I do have a few fans there. I'm lucky that I'm able to stand up. Where was I? What were we talking about? Obviously, I didn't have the energy, and I don't have the energy now. As a matter of fact, Bill Campbell designed the logo for Jubilee, which was used throughout all of the time. Howard Henry did have a wonderful eye and ear, and he had real contacts in New York, and he was able to bring in the acts that we had. I really am not that fond of Jubilee because I had to work all of them, including the 1971, when they cut down all the fences, they burned the bales of hay, they injured one of the guards, And that was very much in contrast to the first Jubilee we had, which was on the lawn in front of Graham Memorial. We had ropes, had it roped off, and people just blithely walked through the rope, through the gateways that we had there. In '71, they made their own gates. They tore down the fence, and so that's what happened then. I don't know that I have anything else to say about Jubilee. But here you go.
I really hadn't thought ahead of time what I might want to say, but listening to Archie, what struck me about Jubilee was there seemed to me to be a need for Jubilee, because it was when it became the first one in April of 1963. It was the first all-campus free concert that had been held here. So it really included the whole campus. Before that, of course, the wonderful Germans, you couldn't beat that. But it was not open to the whole campus. And so Jubilee was, I think, a very special effort to be an inclusive entertainment for people. And that's what I remember most. But no, that's not true. What I remember most is running around the campus, getting people where they were supposed to go and hearing James Brown play at Memorial Hall. There were lots of great things that we did and we had fun doing, and I hope that the students here today have as much fun as we did.
Thank you, thank you. Now in 1965, the program, and I don't know if anybody noticed it in the other room, but it said there was a curfew for women students. Closing hour for all women students was 1 a.m. on Friday night and 2 a.m. on Saturday night. And for the folks, the students who were here in 1965, what was their reaction to that curfew?
I can't use the language I would like to, but it was preposterous, absolutely absurd. But then all those rules back then were absolutely absurd. Things have gotten a little better, thank God. But I can remember running around with him in the middle of the night because I got a sort of a dispensation because I'd helped bring James Brown to the campus. So they actually let me out of my confined spaces to do all this fun stuff.
Now, for the 1971 concert, how was the decision made to actually film that concert?
They made a proposal, and I guess the activist board.
Just say a few.
Maybe you should answer this. It's my understanding that they came up with a proposal, and then the activist board did buy into the idea, and then it was filmed. Is that right?
We did not, I think at the time, realize what we were getting into. It sounded like a great idea to film Jubilee. I don't think we knew at that time either it was going to be the last Jubilee. But we were excited to be part of it, and we were film students, and we thought, well, this is a great thing to use our whatever skills we had for. Woodstock, of course, had just happened, 2 years before. So we knew we weren't going to make Woodstock, but we could try. So we, how it came about is actually a little unclear to me, but the Carolina Union was gracious enough to give us a generous budget of $1,000. And that was it. That paid for the film, the processing, and the prints, and all of the things that had to be bought. No one else got any funds out of it, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And it took us months and months to do it. I think we probably finished it in the early fall, maybe late summer. So a lot of the class who graduated that year probably have never seen the actual film. So I hope you all wander down the hall and see the finished thing. But that's about all I can remember how it came about. So
I didn't know.
you all remember?
Oh, you were. Hang on.
Why don't you describe a little? Why don't you describe a little bit about what went into making the film and some of the things that you did?
Well, we are missing our colleague, Charlie Huntley, who was a big part of the energy behind this as well. And when we were trying to, among ourselves, remember, how did we do that? Charlie suggested, well, we'll borrow a line from Louis Black, who said, well, this was a film by Rick and Charlie and Jim and a bunch of other people, because lots and lots of people helped work on it. We just handed cameras to folks who could wander around and take candids or take film on the field. We all shot various film of the crowd. HB shot the split screen, four-way split screen you saw. And then if you go and see the full film down the hall, climbed up on the roof of the law school, stayed up there for hours with a little hand-wound Bolex, clicking off a frame about every, what, 30 seconds? How much?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. But anyhow, over several hours, the time lapse of the field being put together and crowds arriving and so on. The still pictures were of tremendous help because we had very, very little film stock. Charlie remembered, which I had forgotten, that we were given a lot of old film stock that came from the freezer in the basement of the photo lab in Swain Hall. And they said, here, just use this film. We had no idea how old it was. It was some kind of color film. So we used all of those. Most of it was probably 100-foot loads. So you'd put it in the camera, it'd run for 2.5 minutes. That was it. You would take it out and try the next one. So the equipment we had by today's standards was pretty primitive. We thought it was fairly high-tech, but that little hand-wound Bolex did a lot of the work of what you see on the screen. Getting the sound in sync with the picture was an absolute challenge. And so you'll notice that in most places it was not in sync. We tried very hard to make it look like it was. In fact, it was specified in the contract, or maybe by the bands. Allman Brothers would not allow us to do sync sound. Geils Band didn't mind. We could do the whole thing, and they even told us when to start the cameras. Tom Rush would not allow us to take sound from the soundboard, but we could put a mic in front of the speaker, so that's what we did. We got great sound out of the Allman Brothers, however, and even though we couldn't make it sync sound, we wound up capturing, I guess, probably the last film of Duane Allman, who was killed in a motorcycle crash just fairly soon after that. So that may be the most historic footage of Duane Allman that exists now. As far as the rest of the film goes, Charlie and I did a lot of the editing. I did most of the sound. We did it in a little room up in Swain Hall, and it took a long time to do it with using fairly primitive equipment. But looking back on it, I'm still amazed that we actually did it. So.
This is a question for the entire panel, but what are some of your favorite memories of Jubilee and the performers and working with the performers and dealing with them as a student?
Well, we didn't, the camera guys, we didn't really deal with the performers so much. I think Jim did most of that. I dealt with people in the crowd. I had a lot of fun just shooting people. I do remember we were backstage winding the cameras up and loading, having to always reload the cameras, and hearing this beat, this sound that just would not be denied. It was so engaging. We grabbed our equipment and we had to run out and shoot it, and it was Jay Geils. I think it was the first time that Jay Geils' name became well known in that band. For me, speaking for me, it was just so, I loved filmmaking so much, and to be able to do what I love doing in that environment with the music and with the people, you know, my friends and all, it was just fabulous. And I had no idea of the work that had gone on the years before with the previous, you know, from '63 on. That just wasn't part of my reality at all. It's too bad. I didn't have a sense of context of it all. That's.
No.
You were backstage a lot.
Yeah, I was very lucky for the '71 film. I just did a couple of shots, so the rest of the time I was able to just stay backstage, and I had a great backstage pass, so I enjoyed it. But Jubilee had, when I first came here as a freshman, over in, wasn't it Navy Field in like 68, 69? It was Navy Field with Rufus Thomas and Neil Diamond and Fetzerfield. And so it moved around, and but I think the year at the few years at Keenan Stadium were amazing with Joe Cocker, Grand Funk Railroad. I mean, there were a lot of big groups, and that's when, I mean, that's a big leap from Lester Flax and Earl Scruggs and Lester Flax to Grand Funk Railroad is a big leap. And but our, like Jim said, our equipment was it was a big challenge for us to get that recorded in those times, and the things that they had to do to make that a reality. And today, anybody on a laptop can do the same thing in, you know, a fraction of the time. So it's amazing.
Thank you. And a question maybe for Archie or something, but the Chance's office, what was their reaction to Jubilee? Did they get a lot of complaints from the townspeople in Chapel Hill? You must have been dealing with it on the administrative level.
Constantly. There were complaints coming in about every 15 minutes from everywhere around, all the adjoining counties. Howard was very cool during this. I was panicky. Howard also had the pleasure of, I think it was one of the Keenan Stadium acts. They wouldn't leave the stage because there were sheriffs who were waiting to arrest them or to take their instruments. And so finally Howard had to get on the stage and ask them to please leave. And so that was also going on. I guess one of my favorite members is Petula Clark, who asked for an ironing board and used one of the classrooms, ironed her own dress. She had never done an outdoor concert, certainly not to this many people. So I watched her as she paced back and forth, and then she made the sign of the cross and hit the stage. It was delightful.
Thank you. I think the band was Pacific Gas and Electric in 1970. I think they owed some money for a band they played in Raleigh that they left. They said they were shot at. They were an interracial band, and they said they'd never come back to North. Came back for this concert, and sheriff's deputies from Wake County showed up and said, "Well, you owe us some money for the concert there." And I guess they tried to say they were being the man was trying to arrest them, but the sheriff let them finish their play and all that. But that was quite an interesting. All that stuff is in the records of the Carolina Union with Archie's and Mr. Henry's records are in there, so it has all the detail of those kind of things. So UNC had to pay a bond or something to make sure that somebody was going to be covered. So now, what about Camilla and Bill? What are your favorite memories of Jubilee?
Well, there's so many of them that it's hard to really decide, but I think my most favorite memory is getting to work with these great people like Archie and Bill Smith and Bill Campbell and Diane Sherrick. We just had a good time. Jubilee was fantastic, but Grand Memorial did more than just Jubilee, and that was a great thing because we had the parapsychology people from Duke over, so it was a broad thing. It wasn't just all partying, and I guess those are my most favorite memories.
Camilla and I were on that board, and I was current events chairman, and Mr. Henry said we want something kind of controversial, and as those that remember the original Grand Memorial, had oil rugs and leather couches, and I got the head of the John Birch Society for the state of North Carolina and his staff to come over to have a lively debate at Grand Memorial, which was very civil, but it was kind of different, and it was a step towards open communication. But I have to parrot what Camilla said, that it was really the first all-campus weekend and activity where everybody joined together and came out and clapped their hands and spread their cloths and made a true student union.
I just second what he says. I think the fact that we managed to come together as a group and some people were not left out, this was a great accomplishment for our first Jubilee. You had it, Archie?
I have nothing to say.
I've left you.
The 1971 concert was the last one, and I was just curious to see if there's anything specific that happened at that concert. Archie mentioned a few things about the security guard and the fences being torn down. But it sounded like some of the concert, that the decision may have been started to be made before that concert, that might have been the last one. And I don't know if anybody from the class of 71 can talk about that or anything. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else in the crowd want to share about their experiences with Jubilee and talk about what it was like to attend those concerts? Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We were really glad and we're really appreciative, and please give everybody a round of applause for joining us here on stage.